think so many people are burnt out at the moment and don't even quite know that they are. Or some people have diagnoses that require them to rest, not be on their feet so much, not be out in the open so much, or whatever it may be. But because of work, they have to do it anyway. I'm talking about the young intern doctor in KZN who reported that he was ill, but then collapsed and died after being forced to work while he was feeling unwell. And his death has ignited a national conversation about the harsh realities faced by employees who are made to choose between their health and their job security, their lives and their job security. From hospitals to offices, too many South Africans are suffering in silence, afraid to call in sick, anxious about workload expectations, unsupported by HR policies that should protect them, and at odds with their management. So on this Health Wednesday, we examine South Africa's sick leave laws, employers' duty of care, and the growing mental health crisis in the workplace. We'll unpack workers' rights, the legal responsibilities of employers, and also what needs to shift in order to create a work culture that truly values well-being over productivity and costs. Let's speak to our labor lawyer, who is our guest, Michael Bagram. Thank you for joining us, Michael. Hi.
Hi, an absolute pleasure. Thank you. And this is not only a hot topic now, but it's been like this for years. And especially in the medical field and, of course, security personnel. They're also heavily affected by this.
Well, let's welcome Kgolagano Lehobye, who is an HR executive. And I wonder what your point of view is as soon as we talk about the topic. Michael says this has been an issue for a long time and mentions very specific sectors. Your thoughts as I welcome you?
Thank you so much, Pabi, for having me. Hello, Michael.
Hi.
And he is 100% correct to say it has been a topic that has been a long time coming. However, it's not just in those two sectors. It's just generally worldwide. You know, in every sector, you hear of fatigue. You hear of employees even losing their lives to mental health. You know, because of just the environment that they're working in and policies that are not supporting them or managers that are not supporting them. So I'm glad that we are having this conversation, and I really hope it will be educational to a lot of not just people but also employers.
100%. Alex, were you able to hear Kgolagano's line? Okay, so will you just fix it up so that when we get to the next question for her, we're in a better place. So, Michael, let's start with understanding what the laws are, right? What are sick leave laws in South Africa according to the basic conditions of employment? And you can take us through people who have kind of permanent jobs, and you can take us through freelancers and maybe people who just have a job where they come once off or not.
Yeah, thank you. The basic conditions covers everyone. So it's not as if you're permanent or if you work one day a month, or even if you are termed to be an independent contractor, because now the laws are looking at workers as opposed to employees. So the basic conditions covers everyone. And then if you belong to a bargaining council, well, that bargaining council will probably improve upon the basic conditions of Employment Act. There is one caveat, and the caveat is that if you want to get paid for that sick leave, and you've been sick for more than 2 days in a row, or 2 days I think it's a 6-week period, the employer can then say, I need to have a medical certificate which is signed off by a medical practitioner that is registered. But they can't stop you. If you say you're sick, they can't make you come to work. The problem is, as your introduction said, people are nervous. People are worried about their jobs. We have now 42% unemployment. And you've got very demanding employers out there, and this is across the world. We're seeing this. I've just recently been speaking to labor lawyers in Washington, D.C., who are facing exactly the same problem, where people are too scared to take their sick leave. And then also there's another thing. Employers tend to say, well, you've used up all your sick leave. Well, that there's no such thing as using up all your sick leave. You might have used up all your paid sick leave, but if you're ill and you've had an accident or you're suffering from heart disease and you're sick, well, you mustn't come to work because people are in fact dying. And this case of the doctor, the young doctor, has focused all of us on the disaster that is happening all around. And then you also refer to mental illness and to problems such as tension. You can't see that. And so employers tend to actually disbelieve you. You know, if I have a car accident, I've broken both my legs, they can see that, they understand why I can't get to work. But if I say I'm suffering from tension, they look at me and they say, you look fine, fit and healthy. You better get here. So we've got problems all around, but we have the codes of good practice put out by the Department of Employment and Labour, and those codes are extensive. Very few employers are following them, but they are extensive. And we're having lots of arbitrations just with regard to the sick leave and the refusal to give sick leave. It's becoming more and more evident at the workplace that there is this pressure. And there's certain professions I think are worse off. I know in my small law firm, I'm facing this issue with the security industry heavily, very heavily in the bargaining council, because security can't actually they're working, say, 24-hour shift, and then they can't take off until the next one relieves them, and people are literally not only falling asleep on their feet, but they're feeling so ill they can hardly concentrate. And we've known this for years with doctors, especially young doctors, who are at the provincial hospitals, the national hospitals. They're working, it's unbelievable. They are working back to back and not even enough time to go and eat, never mind sleep. It's just become an impossible situation. And as the departments of health are saying, well, we've got less and less money, they are forcing more and more doctors to actually do work of 3-4 doctors. And all the posts are underfunded. All the hospitals have got posts that have not been filled, and they're expecting the little amount of doctors that are at each hospital to do the work of literally 4 or 5 people each.
And that's crazy because the public sector doctors, where this gentleman was, have regulated hours, right? So 40 to 45 hours a week, for example, divided into specific amounts of hours in a shift, Monday to Friday. And so with all of that in mind, as an HR specialist, let's talk a little bit about this manager who is forcing somebody who not only has maybe worked their ordinary hours, but is actually ill to come to work and to do the work.
And look, I think what is important is every manager needs to understand that when an employee says, I'm unwell, it means I'm unfit to work, right? So therefore, the law is very clear. We need to then give that employee an opportunity to go, recover, get medical attention, and come back to work when they're fit to work. And that is why sick leave, and I like what Mike said, to say there's paid sick leave, there's also unpaid sick leave. Because if an employee has exhausted their sick leave that's paid, we can still give them time off to go and actually get themselves checked out. It's very important. And also, making employees work excessive hours. I mean, the law is also very clear on that. Bargaining councils regulate that, like Mike said. The law is also saying employees need time to rest. So you cannot have somebody that's working 7 days straight out. They are going to be fatigued. And that's where, also mental health issues comes in. That's where high absenteeism comes in. And then obviously they are not going to be productive, and then it's going to lead to other issues of performance and misconduct. So every manager is important that you need to look after your employees. You need to make sure that there are steps that the HR department also have in place to support employees who are fatigued or who've got mental health issues. And that's why under normal circumstances, especially in your manufacturing spaces, you would have, on-site clinics or doctors coming once a week to actually see some patients, because sometimes employees don't even have that money. So that's where the company then invests in such tools. You would then have an EAP program that the company pays an employee, can then speak to a counselor if they've got mental health issues. So there's different ways of us as managers or companies supporting employees, not just with general ill health, but also mental health.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think mental health is something we're almost still becoming accustomed to in many ways. I've been told, after explaining very dire circumstances in my life, that that's nothing. That's nothing. You come to work, you do your thing, that's nothing. I don't feel sorry for you. And that's the kind of atmosphere that we still have in some of these corporate organizations. And so if somebody is not feeling mentally well, and then, Michael, if they aren't feeling physically well, I mean, is it legal for that manager to pressure them to come to work?
No, it certainly isn't. And in fact, there's a certain amount of liability, because I'm not sure what's going to happen now with the doctor that died at work. But if I was the family, I would take that to the High Court. Now, you've got a problem, and there's a certain lacuna in our law, because everyone working has to be covered by the compensation fund. The compensation fund is basically giving an indemnity to the employers against any illness at work or a death at work. So in other words, they have to claim from the compensation fund. And often when I'm saying I'm threatening a company, I'm saying I'm going to claim from you because you've now done something which has threatened the health of the individual.
Yes.
In other words, they don't give you a window, or it's too hot, the working circumstances.
Yes.
They say, no, not us, sue the compensation fund. Go to the Department of Employment and Labour and blame them, because we pay. So we've got indemnity. But it can't be a blanket indemnity. And I'm waiting for someone to challenge that and to say, no, we don't agree. We're going to take you, because what you've done is you've created liability for the actual company. So it is a difficult situation. I haven't found much litigation on this at all. But I'm waiting for that brave attorney to say, no, you forced my person who told you he's sick, you forced him to come in, he's now died, the family unfortunately is left bereft, and there is liability. So there must be something to this, and it can't just be on the lap of the compensation fund. It would be wonderful one day to have a guest from someone from the compensation fund and say, where does your liability stop? And where does the company's liability kick in? And I think the Department of Employment and Labour needs to put out a practice note to say that if you're going to do something that is viciously liable, you can't blame the compensation fund. They're not at every office. They can't watch everything. Our law in this country is good. Our law gives all sorts of codes and outline. There's been booklets put on health at the workplace. But how many companies are actually following it? We've got a dearth of inspectors as well.
Yes.
And so it's a real problem. I think it's the practice is the real problem. We need more inspectors, and also we need actually guidelines as to who becomes liable when. Because people are forced to come to work. People are having a problem. There was an issue, just an anecdotal story in Australia a few years ago, that the companies cottoned on to this, and they said, okay, we will pay you all your sick leave. In other words, if you don't take sick leave, we will pay it to you anyway at the end of the year as a bonus. So you're entitled to, say, 3 weeks sick leave per annum. We will pay you an extra 3 weeks if you don't take any sick leave. So we had a disease called presenteeism, where people, even if their mates had to come and wheelbarrow them into work, they brought them there because they didn't want to lose out on the payment that they would receive at the end of the year. I mean, it's as stupid as that. So someone would be almost on their deathbed. They'd bring them to work. The disease would spread at the workplace, but the employer was happy because the person was there. That's how mad it became there. They've done away with that.
Yeah.
So you can't bank your sick leave and tell the company you pay me instead. Can't do that. That's illegal in South Africa. The same as actual holiday leave.
Yes, I was going to ask, can you bank your leave?
No, you can't, and that's the point. The whole idea is that leave is there for you to be well. It's to actually give your mind a rest, give your body a rest. You must take it.
Here's an interesting tweet from David saying, interesting topic. if you are booked off sick and decide to go to the mall during the course of your sick leave and your HR sees you, they will charge you with dishonesty. Khulogano, as HR, if you bump into them and they say they're sick.
Actually, though, that is so common, right? Mm-hmm. That is very common. Look, it's always important to then call the employee in and say, why were you there? They could be at the mall to go to the pharmacy and actually fetch medication. Yeah. It's not the same as when they are at the mall having drinks with a friend and all of it. Then that is dishonesty. Then that is misconduct. So ideally, when an employee says, I'm booked off sick, please be at home and rest, because you don't really need unnecessary attention on yourself, because also if you're at a mall, normally mall is seen as leisure time, and that is paid company time. So when you say you're sick, be at home, rest. Yes, of course, if you go to the mall to fetch your medication, or if you go to the mall to buy food because you need the food for you to be okay, it's not the same. So it's also important that when an employee go to the mall, they go in and out. Sometimes they can't run away from it. But I mean, at the end of the day, you can't go to the mall for drinks with a friend and say you're on sick leave. Then that is definitely dishonesty.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine if you saw them smoking a hubbly-bubbly somewhere.
That situation,
yeah, that's an issue.
Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's have a quick listen to this voice note, and then we'll come back after the headlines and deal with what it says.
Sure.
Hey, Pabi. So I just wanted to share my experience from a Europe point of view. So in Poland, where I am currently living at the moment, is you can get 3 months of what they call mental leave. No questions asked if a doctor has booked you off for mental leave. And you can take this, whether it's a month or 2 months or 3 months, until the doctor deems you well enough to come back to work. And it's just, amazing. You get paid your full salary. Your job will still be here waiting for you when you get back. And it was just, that blew my mind. Coming from, South Africa, coming from Africa, when, I started, living here and studying and working here. So, yeah, just thought something that I should share.
I'm so grateful that you shared that, because I think we can have a lot of conversations around there. I wish we had your name, but Miss Poland, thank you very much for sharing that story with us. I'll have our guests Michael Bagram and Khulogano Lehobia back on the line with us. And Asedi, I do see your call as well. We have another voice note.
Power Lunch with Pabi Moloi. Weekdays 12 to 3 p.m.
Yes, we're talking about working while unwell, and this is obviously inspired by the unfortunate death of intern doctor in KZN. And, when you look into his life and you think about his parents and you think about his matric year, I mean, it's just really quite shocking. At 25, aluluto mazwi, feeling ill, not being able to come to work, knowing that, telling his manager, and his manager says, no, you will be here nonetheless. Also, for such a sensitive job, I can't imagine my doctor trying to take care of me and looking pale and running away every 30 minutes to vomit or whatever's happening. I can't imagine that. So that is something that now has brought up the whole issue of what happens at work. What are our laws saying about sick leave, and also now mental health leave or mental health care is also part of the conversation as well. If you've missed the first half, please, we urge you, once we have it up as a podcast, we will make sure that you do hear it. But just before the break, we spoke to a lady from Poland, or in Poland, South Africa, living, working, studying in Poland, and she says you get 3 months, up to 3 months mental leave break until a doctor deems you better, and your job will still be there. Labor lawyer Michael Bagram, HR executive Khulogano Lehobia. Michael, your thoughts about this up to 3 months mental leave?
Well, it sounds fantastic, but that might be the right word, fantasia, because at the end of the day, it's the UIF, the Unemployment Insurance Fund, that would have to cough in the money and not the employer. Now, our UIF is actually very well funded, and in fact is being raided all the time by the Department of Employment and Labour. They've just raided it now to pay to bail out all sorts of companies, and they're losing money on bad investments through the PIC. They've lost over R1 billion. So it would be money well spent rather on the employees, because it's employees' money that's there in the UIF. But then we need a change of heart from the Department of Employment and Labour, and we certainly need a change of the ministry, to rather look at the workers as opposed to some of these far-fetched schemes that the department is trying to do. So I'm in favor of what's happening in Poland, because they're saying that money belongs to the workers. Let's see what would help the workers best. It's not government money, but government, unfortunately, is using the money for their own purposes, and it becomes a political decision. But I like what's happened in Poland, and I think it's good, and someone should actually investigate it. It might be an idea to put that idea to NEDLAC and have it debated, because it's not just for mental health, it's for all sorts of other issues.
Yes.
And the workers need that help, need someone to bail them out.
Absolutely. I think that's so very important. Michael, I know that you do need to leave very soon, so let's listen to Lesiba, and then maybe we can let you go. Lesiba, hello.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, guys.
Welcome.
I'm condolences for the young doctor's family and friends. But I feel that he is a professional. As a doctor, we go to him to say we don't feel well. He's the one who can give the president of the country sick leave, a judge sick leave. So he cannot be bullied as a professional. So I think there's also the responsibility of the doctor there to say, as a professional, how could he have been bullied? Because we have to look into that as well.
So you're saying he can't be bullied because he's a professional. Is this what you're saying?
He's a professional. He can put his foot down. That's why he's a doctor. That's why I say he can actually say to a judge, you can't go to work today. It doesn't matter that the case is important or it's urgent. You can preside over that case. You are sick. And that from him will actually stop the proceedings on that day.
Gotcha, Lesiba. Point well made. Michael, he's a professional. He should have just put his foot down.
I don't agree with that. I'll tell you for two reasons. One, as a doctor, they're saying if you don't come in, people are going to die. And he's taken an oath and he feels the responsibility. So it's very unfair to put it on his shoulders. The second thing is, he knows that if he gets dismissed, it's going to be almost impossible for him to carry out his future.
Gosh, yes.
So it's a real problem. I apologize for the noise in the background here. I'm at the CTICC in Cape Town, so I apologize.
No stress. We'll actually let you go now so that you're on time for what you need to do. Michael Bagram, labor lawyer, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You keep well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gologano, I mean, what do you think? He's a professional. He should put his foot down. I think that's my favorite line of the day. Put your foot down.
Yeah, I agree with Michael, Pabi. It's very unfair. It's extremely unfair because whether you're a professional or not, workplace bullying happens, right? And at the end of the day, he is an employee. He's got a manager. There are rules that he needs to abide to. So it's very unfortunate that we still have people that would think like that, because every person that is working in a different sector is a professional. But it does not mean that now they are immune to being bullied. At the end of the day, this young man was bullied. He then, put his profession and everything else before his own health. And unfortunately, we find ourselves in this situation now. It is not his fault. It can never be his fault. As employers, we've got a responsibility to look after our employees and to listen to them. Have empathy and listen to them. So that's my one point. But I wanted to just weigh in on the Poland lady.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Wow. I mean, when she spoke, I went, wow, right? Because it is such an amazing thing that's happening there. But unfortunately, if you're going to bring it home in South Africa, UIF alone cannot be the answer to this.
Yeah.
If you speak to a normal person out there, they will tell you that for them to get the UIF benefit, it takes forever. It takes forever. And if you're going to then say it can be a benefit for mental health patients, it's going to even add more stress to their current stress. You know what I mean? But I think, this may be an opportunity for private sector and government to come together and say, how do we both as parties then look into this model and say what can work for South Africa?
Yeah.
I don't think it's impossible for us to do in South Africa. However, both private sector and government must then come together, because 3 months is a very long time. Companies will tell you about budget and all of those things.
Of course.
So how best then can we make sure that this works to benefit the employee, so the employee can ultimately come back to work?
Do we have another voice note? Let's go to it.
Good day to you. This is Jabu from Soshangu.
Hi, Jabu.
How's Pabi? You know, the problem with this HR managers and all those people in the top management is that the companies do not vet them, do not screen them. Well, I'm in the background check services business. We do something that is called psychometric analysis, where we analyze your emotional intelligence. So such people, they're getting many people in danger because of their emotional intelligence that is lacking. They cannot deal with people, but such things are undermined. They do not take them through such tests. So it's a mirbanyo. Thank you.
Wow.
Hi, there's nowhere like South Africa, hey? Even Poland with their 3 months. A mirbanyor. It's a title, a word that our lunchtime host, Pabi Moloi, loves to use on his show. And it absolutely is. This is a very challenging space. And maybe that's something to discuss, because you are finding people in management who, perhaps were just good at their jobs, but don't have managerial skills, right?
Yeah.
Or B, may just be, as he says, lacking emotional intelligence, lacking leadership skills. Perhaps, they now think that because I've got a managerial title next to my name, now all of the bullying that I had when I was young and my anger towards whoever and, can now come up because I'm the boss, So that is a really messy place to find yourselves in a company where management treats people that way. What do we say of these screenings? Do we even have screenings of people in top management, in middle management? I don't know if that's even illegal to have, of their mental capacity, of the way they deal with issues, etc.
Yeah. Look, Pabi, each company has got its own recruitment policy, and at a very senior level, under normal circumstances, you would find psychometric assessments being done on candidates to then test their different capabilities and obviously then get the best candidate out of it, right? So, however, those are just batteries. But we know that normally when a person gets into the job, pressure and stress also brings out a different person as compared to what they were in the tests. And for me, I think what's important is I agree with you completely. Every manager, not even HR, but every person that leads a team, that manages a team, must have what I call human skills, not soft skills, human skills. They need to know that they deal with humans, they support humans every day. Therefore, emotional intelligence is key. It is not something that is a luxury to have. It's a must-have. And companies need to start engaging, or rather investing, in trainings and making sure that they empower and capacitate managers to get them to be not just technically strong or operationally strong, but also be strong in leading teams and making sure that they have healthy teams from a behavior, from a mental wellness perspective, And we see a lot of these when there's high absenteeism or when there's high labor turnover. Then you know that team is not very strong or it's not a happy team. And 9 out of 10 chances it goes back to the manager. that is leading them. So for me, that's very important. We need to also have the right policies in place that then also support the different managers, so that, when there's lack of emotional intelligence for whatever reason, we can always fall back on the policies that the company has put in place.
What's the difference between soft skills and human skills?
For me, I say, when you say soft skills, you may not necessarily use a lot of empathy. You may not necessarily be intentional in acknowledging that this person is a human being who's got feelings, who's got needs, and in the workspace, they require some sort of encouragement. They need to feel that they're seen and they're heard in the workspace. And soft skills, for me, it is a word that's used very loosely, but it's not an intentional word.
I see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, if I think about it, there are different things, right? I mean, I can know how to greet you. I can know how to say the right things in emails, but I can also do that without seeing you as a person rather than employee number 4762. So I understand what you're saying, and I think that that's very important. Let's speak to Mighty, who's in Northcliffe. Hi, Mighty.
Hi, Pabi, and how are you?
Great, thank you. Welcome. Khulekanya is also here.
Yes, Khulekanya.
Hi, Mike.
I just want to, comment on we've got to look at what are the learning points arising out of this unfortunate tragedy of the doctor. It cuts both ways. Okay? And the previous lawyer, that's where I differed with him.
Okay.
When you look at the learning point from this, is that both employer and employee have got duties and obligations and the rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I sense a tendency these days of the youth, in particular because of high unemployment, reluctant to exercise their rights in terms of the law. And I think there should be a drive, in my view, to tell people that you've got the rights. When you are ill, and you are genuinely ill, you don't even have, it's a courtesy just to drop an email to your employer to say, I'm ill, I'll be seeing a doctor. Because you are ill, and that's your right to do so.
Yes.
Okay? And nobody, and I'll get to the second learning point, which people must understand. You've got also, if they victimize you or they dismiss you, there's also the Labor Relations Act that protects you. And we would like to see youngsters exercising their rights and being assertive at the workplace and say, look, I'm not coming to work, I'm ill. And you just drop, and you look at the lower level employees, they exercise their rights because they're unionized, and they know their rights. And there's a problem of professionals who are not unionized generally, and who these employers who are very scrupulous are exploiting them. They refuse to give certain people even maternity leave. They cut people's paternity leave and all those things, and then they're not being taken on. And because the professionals in particular are not unionized.
Okay.
So the learning points that I'm saying is that employees must begin, especially professionals, to exercise their rights under the law.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mighty. Professionals, you're all in trouble. No one feels sorry for you. You are a professional. You need to know what your rights are. You need to put your foot down. You need to bite back. Professionals. The rest of us, lower class, we just are doing what we need to do.
Oh wow! Look, Pabi, I think we also need to understand that the late intern doctor was exactly that, an intern, right? He's a youngster. He's building his career. He wants to impress. He's in training, right? So I really have a problem with people that were really putting this onto him, because at the end of the day, if you've worked with graduates before, or if you've been a graduate before, you would know that you grab that opportunity with everything that you've got, because this is the beginning. It sets the tone for your future, right? So in that particular instance, we as the employer have got a responsibility we have got a responsibility, one, to make sure that our employees understand the policies of the company.
Yeah.
Our employees understand the rights of the company. And also, there's also the freedom of association. It does not mean that when we are professionals, you cannot belong to a union.
Yeah.
You can belong to a union or some sort of an employee association that can then help you and guide you in such situations.
I will say this, and I have been kind of saying it almost tongue in cheek whenever I talk about and echo what people are saying about especially professionals. But I think there is something to be learned about the pushback. There is something to be learned about knowing what your rights are and pushing back. We are in an economy that makes that high stakes, unfortunately. So that's a high stakes game. Because if your manager just doesn't like you and you are sick to the point where you can die at work that very day, they don't even care. You are now, you don't listen to them. You're not a team worker. You're always absent, etc., and so forth. Who knows what they'll write to come up to HR or to go up to management. So I do understand that, but that's why it's so important on the other side to have HR that's available to really support the management in doing the right thing. Because here's patients saying, unfortunately, this is not uncommon. The workplace has become a war zone. Only people now are speaking up. Top management is often out of touch with reality and trends solely to prioritize the bottom line at all costs. They are often rewarded with no accountability. And we are human beings in these jobs. We're not robots. So we have to eat, we have to go to hospital, we have to have our maternity leave, etc. and so forth. So you're right. As professionals, learn your rights and push back. But on the other side, it has to be a bit of a softer landing. I'm speaking fast. I'm moving fast because we need to go to the news at 5 so that the minister can tell us the fiscal policy. So let's listen to this voice note very quickly.
Sure.
Hi, Pabi.
Hello.
So from Pretoria. Pabi, what I've noticed is these days, if you are an empathetic leader, it seems as if an organization, they don't want you. They want somebody firm, they don't want someone who will empathize with the employees. That's why this is happening. The reason for that intent to have passed on due to him going to work while he knew that he was not feeling well, it's because his manager is not empathetic. If the manager was empathetic, they could have let that intern stay at home until he got better.
Yeah.
But because these days, the only thing that we care about is the numbers.
The bottom line.
That's why we are in this kind of problems.
Let's stop
Nobody
that voice
cares
note.
about the employee.
And what a point to make, right? Similar to what I just read, Khulukhanyo, it's about the bottom line. It's about how much money we're going to make. It's about all of that as opposed to the people who are doing the actual work.
And we need to change that, Pabi. HR is evolving. It's now a business partner, and we need to drive the business in the right direction. We need to look after our people. We need them. We need our people. So we need to look after them. We want them to come back to work. So he is right. However, that's a conversation for me. I wish we can actually have this as a topic on its own, to say what is the employer requiring out of HR, and the mental health of HR in this whole process.
I mean, I think that we can talk about. We've spoken about HR from every angle. I'm sure there are more angles, yes. But please come back when we talk about the mental health of HR, because I can imagine being in that position, kind of balancing the world on your shoulders is a very challenging one. But this has been a very, very enlightening conversation. Khulukhanyo Lehobia, HR executive, thank you very much for your time.